What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another market update. And this time we're going to cover the items that sold at Hakes in the January auction. Lots of great mint on card items I'm going to go through, some graded, some ungraded. And as is typical with Hakes, there were some good deals, and then there were some that were not such good deals, a little bit higher than I expected. But overall, I feel like the prices were pretty strong. But there were some surprises and pleasant surprises in terms of the final sales prices. And as always, I want to say thanks to my Patreon supporters. You guys allow this channel to be what it is today, and I can't thank you enough. Patreon.com/actionfiguregrader is where you can go to sign up. Now, with Hakes, you do have to pay what's called a buyer's premium. So whatever your final bid is, you got to add 18% to that total, and that pays for the operations and for the auction costs and things like that. And then on top of that, you also have to pay shipping costs, which are, not cheap. But there were some really nice looking items here. There were so many items that I wanted. I did get a few that I hope to show you fairly soon, since CAS is running their 30-day turnaround time for mint on card, both vintage and modern items. So I should have those back, I would think, in the next maybe month and a half, depending on when Hakes ships my items back. But let's go ahead and dig right in. The first one was an AFA 80 41 back E Hoth Stormtrooper. It was punched, but nice looking example. 75, 80, 80 were the sub scores. And the value code, this is something else that I've covered in past Hakes videos. Hakes always puts an estimate of where they think this item's going to sell, and I put this one right in line there. I thought it was going to be kind of at the upper end of this value code, and the final sales price was $706.82. So again, all the prices I'm quoting include the 18% buyer's premium as shown here, includes the buyer's premium. So $706.82, that's right at the very top end of the range, and I think that's kind of right in line with market value for a clear blister 41 back E Hoth Stormtrooper punched. If it was unpunched, it'd probably have been closer maybe to $900 would be my guess, but really nice looking example. That was very tempting. Next up was a yellow blister 65 back A R2-D2 sensor scope. And the value code on this one was $200 to $400. I thought that might have been a little bit low. And again, I don't know the prices on some of these as I'm making this video. So you and I are going to find out the sales prices on a lot of these together. But this was an unpunched card with the price sticker. The final sales price was $442.50. So again, that one came in a little bit above the value code, value range from Hakes. And I thought that final winning bid was very fair for what it was. It was a yellow blister, as you can see here. Fairly moderately yellowed, but I think that price was probably in line. Next up was a Forlom 77 back B with the Anakin Skywalker mail-away offer on the front. It was lighter yellowing to the blister, but it was unpunched with no price sticker, so a very, very nice example. AFA 85 as well. So usually, as you guys know with Hakes, once you hit 85 and above for a lot of these mint on card figures, the price really jumps up. They put the value code at $200 to $400. I would have said closer to $500, but I was wrong. The final sales price was $473.77, including the buyer's premium. So again, I think that price was very fair. I mean, these were some pretty fair deals overall. And next up, we've got an 80+ Luke Stormtrooper on the Power of the Force card, 80, 85, 80. And I laugh because it seems like at Hakes, when you have graded Power of the Force card backs, especially for last 17, they always tend to command big money. And I was guessing around $1,500 was my number, but I have a feeling that that's probably low. Again, I haven't looked up what the final sales price was. I set up all these tabs before the bidding was over with because I wanted to see what they would sell for. And the final sales price on this one was $22.06. So as you can see, I was quite a bit low. Maybe it's just my imagination, but it does look like maybe there's potentially some frosting on the hair of this Luke Stormtrooper, but it might just be a glare or dust on the inside of the blister there. But really nice example, and you're going to pay up for an unpunched Power of the Force card back 80+ condition. $1,500 was probably a little bit low, but it did finally sell for $22.06. Next up was the Imperial Gunner, and this one was a yellowed AFA 80. On the Power of the Force card, again, unpunched, no price sticker, so you knew it would be big money. I was guessing probably $700 to $800. They put the value code at $1,000 to $2,000, which seems a little high to me. The final sales price was $945, so it did come in a little bit below the lower end of the range from Hakes on the value code. So 945, is that fair? Probably. You know, it's a pretty nice looking example. I would argue that you could probably find a similar item on eBay for about the same price, if not a little bit less. But the yellowing on this blister was very mild, and that tends to help the price just a little bit. Usually the ones I see on eBay are quite a bit more yellowed than this one. So this one is about as mint as you're going to get, really, for most of the time, for the Imperial Gunner, and that was a beautiful example. Next up was a Monomon, very similar yellowing to the blister, not too bad. Presents really nicely, again, unpunched with no price sticker. It was AFA 80. It did have a 75 subscore, which, you know, maybe Hakes attracts some of those kind of buyers that are very picky and they want to have all 80 and above subscores, so that might keep the price down. The value code was $700 to $1,000, and again, I think that value code is probably right. I'm guessing this sold for about $850, and I was way off again. So it was at $1,024. So it came in slightly above the upper end of the range. That seems a little high to me, but again, as I said, usually at Hakes, when you got graded, high grade, Power of the Force, last 17 figures, unpunched, no price sticker, with very light to moderate yellowing, you're going to be paying towards the upper end of the range, and that one was no exception at all, but it was a beautiful Monomon. Next up was EV99, again, a yellowed 80, but very, very mild yellowing to the blister, so I would expect this one to go for probably closer to $1,000. The value code on this one, again, was $700 to $1,000, but that yellowing is almost non-existent. I mean, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous example for the EV99 Torture Droid. 80, 80, 85 were the subscores. The final sales price was $856. So to me, this is a really good buy. I think that me personally, I would have been willing to pay this all day long. $856, including the buyer's premium. That's a really good deal, if only because the blister was so mildly yellow. I mean, that is a really nice example that to me, for EV99 at that price point, given what they sell for sometimes on eBay. Next up, I've got a few items in here that are ungraded, because I feel like the most of the really good values were ungraded examples. And this one, I'm guessing, probably went a little higher than expected, but this one is let's see, we've got it's a 20 back, where is it? I can't even find it now. There it is. It's a 12 back C Jawa, but this has this square bubble with the inner tray, and so this one I think is considered one of the ones that's tougher to find because of the blister variation on this one. It was a clear blister, just very light edge wear all the way around it. On the back, same story, probably a low 80 grade would be my guess, and it was punched. The value code was $700 to $1,000. It sold for $908. So again, for an ungraded example, you're going to get maybe a little bit better deal, but I don't know all the different variations in terms of the blister and which one's more rare, but my gut says that because this one has the square bubble inner tray, it's probably a little bit tougher to find on that 12 back C, but 908 took that one home. Next up was the free Boba Fett offer Greedo on, I guess this is probably the 20 back. Let's see. The 20 back G, Boba Fett offer Greedo. And it was punched. A little bit of creasing right here near the Toys R Us price sticker, and it did have, again, that big price sticker there. So my gut says this is probably about a 75 grade, and that probably kept the price down. The value code was $700 to $1,000. To me, that's probably a little high, but again, I don't know whether this Greedo is tough to find or not. My gut says it's probably not. But again, it was punched. A lot of wear on the back of the card. Some scuffing right here. Scuffing down here in the corner, scuffing right here. So again, probably at best a 75 grade. Again, the value code was $700 to $1,000. That sold for $524. So as I expected, that probably came in a little bit low. And to me, that's a pretty good buy, though, if you can live with the card defects that were on that card. The blister was crystal clear, looked to be really clean overall. But again, for future Hakes auctions, don't only focus on the graded mint on cards or the graded loose figures, because there are some good deals out there, and I think this is a good example of that. Next up was the AT-AT driver with very light yellowing, light to moderate yellowing. This one is the 41 back, and it was unpunched with no price sticker on it. Value code was $200 to $400. To me, that's a little low. If I had to guess, this probably sold for about $500. Tough to find AT-AT drivers in general. Now, if this was a clear blister, I would say it's probably $800 or more. But because of the light yellowing, I'm guessing it probably stayed closer to $500. And my guess was a little bit low. $595.90 was the final sales price after the buyer's premium. Probably about fair, quite honestly. I tend to usually be a little bit low because I'm still thinking like 2018, 2017 prices. But nice looking example of the AT-AT driver offerless as well, which usually gets a little bit of a premium. Here was the 47 back Ungraded, and this one had a beautiful crystal clear blister. It did have kind of some minor wear to the hang tab where you can see that punch was kind of partially torn off and it's kind of hanging right here on the back. So maybe that kept the price down a little bit. I didn't track this one very closely, but the value code on this one was $100 to $200, which I thought was way too low. For a clear blister ESB, you're probably more like $400 to $450 is my guess. The final sales price was $316, which I think is a great buy. It was labeled as very fine to excellent, and they always kind of do it in kind of comic book condition format: fine, very fine, good, very good, things like that. Very fine to excellent usually means to me about an 80 or 80 plus grade. And I think that's what this one would get. It would probably get about an 80 or 80 plus. Maybe that hang tab issue there might hold it back just because it's partially torn. But, it's probably easily, an 80, 85, 85, given that the briefcase for the Ungraded is still taped to the inside of the blister. Beautiful, no dents in the blister. Very nice example. It did have a price sticker, but $316 after the buyer's premium. That's a great buy. Next up, this one was one I did bid on, but I did not win. Somebody really wanted it because they kept going higher and higher, and I had to let it go. But this was a beautiful, I think it's a 48 back offerless AT-AT Commander, and the weapon did come loose inside the blister, so I'm guessing this is probably at best an 80, 85, 80 for the sub scores for an overall 80 or 80 plus. But crystal clear blister, offerless, and there's something about the AT-AT driver on the Empire Strikes Back card that really strikes me when it's offerless, because you can see the AT-AT walkers here during the Battle of Hoth. And it just perfectly captures the Empire, right? The Empire is at its strongest point during the Empire Strikes Back. And this card really speaks to me. So I did bid on this, but I did not win. The value code was $100 to $200. I said, no way, it's going to be more like $400. And I think that's about where I bid. I bid about $400, but I was outbid last second, so I had to let it go. That one sold for $446.51, which again, I think that price is actually pretty good. I would have paid that all day long, but I had my budget and I tried to stick to it. And if I couldn't win it, then I let it go and I focused on other items. And I think I did pretty well in the items I won. So we'll be unboxing those when they get back from CAS. But that was a really nice example. I wish I could have picked it up. It just was not meant to be for me. A couple of die casts that were mint on card also sold. And this one was the Snow Speeder. It was listed as very good overall. It's probably about a 75 plus condition. There was some wear around the hang tab. There was some sticker residue here. The blister looked nice and well attached, although it was yellowed, but tough to find this one. The back of the card also looked very clean, just some very, very minor scuffing towards the bottom of the back of the card. And again, some wear around the hang tab, as you can see there. Very, very light scuffing. But I think this would probably get a 75 plus. Now, the value code on this one was $200 to $400. I was thinking it was going to be more like $500. It sold for $584. So even that one went a little bit above the value code. But the other die cast I wanted to point out, I got two more. This is the one I was really hoping to get, but I just got sidetracked with other items. And that's the Twin Pod Cloud Car. What I liked about this one was that it was a clear blister. And in general, I feel like all the mint on card cloud cars that come up on eBay are always yellowed blister. But this one was a beautiful crystal clear blister. But it did have some condition issues. Around the hang tab was pretty heavy wear. There was also some litho tears right here from where the price sticker was removed. And on the right-hand side, there was quite a bit of edge wear. On the back of the card, you can see some pretty major wear down here. So, I had if I was going to bid on this one, it was going to be low. I didn't end up bidding on it because I got sidetracked with some other items, and just the way the timing worked out with the bidding process, I didn't bid on it, but it was awfully tempting. The value code was $200 to $400, and I thought it would stay right in that line, just given the card condition issues. But to me, if you can get it around that price, that's a pretty good buy. given that it's a clear blister. And the final sales price was $243.43. So I'm kind of kicking myself because I probably should have bid on this one. Who knows what the final bid, the high bid was from whoever ended up winning this one. But to me, $243 for this item, clear blister, probably a low 75 grade, was a really good buy. So if you happen to be watching this and you bought this die-cast Cloud Car Pilot and you decide to change your mind and you want to sell it in a month or two, please send me an email because I would love to have this one for my Cloud Car Pilot run. It was just a really nice item, but I just, when you're juggling so much stuff, and the way Hakes works is at 8 p.m., there's a 20-minute cutoff. And there's a 20-minute kind of countdown clock, as you can see right here. And so if anyone bids after 8 p.m., that 20-minute clock resets and starts over again. So what happens is if you're kind of like looking at multiple items, you have to kind of keep track of where the bid is and when the actual clock resets. And for me, because of the items I was really wanting more than this twin pod Cloud Car Pilot, it just didn't work out timing wise because I had bids in kind of action with some other mint on cards. So didn't end up having the chance to bid on this, but now I'm really kicking myself because $243.43 for that one is a great buy. Great buy. Here was a beautiful one. Now this was a resealed blister for the diecast Tie Bomber. So the Tie Bomber is considered the hardest one to get, but it was very tastefully done in terms of how it was resealed. Now, loose and ungraded, just the diecast Tie Bomber, we've seen sales prices anywhere from $800 to up to $1,300. So I knew this one was going to go for big money because it did include the original packaging. But it's precluded from being graded as a mint and sealed box example because it was a reseal. But it was a very tastefully done reseal. I mean, I can't even tell really where it was. But it looks great. It was just absolutely gorgeous. The value code was $400 to $700. And again, as we just talked about, loose ungraded Tie Bomber die-cast, they sell for well above that price sometimes. So to me, that price was way too low. And the final sales price reflects that. It was $2,686 and change for this resealed die-cast Tie Bomber. It's a really beautiful item, but I shudder to think, what if an AFA minted and sealed box example, like AFA 80 for example, what would the sales price on that be if a resealed Tie Bomber sold for almost $2,700? It's got to be a big number. So very cool to see it sell, but well outside anything I would be comfortable with. Next up was it looks like a 65 back B Power Droid. Very light yellowing on this one. It did have a pretty pronounced crease above the hang tab, but overall very good condition. I would guess it'd probably grade out about an 80, maybe an 80 plus, somewhere in that ballpark. The value code was $200 to $400, and that's probably about where I'd put it. I have a CAS 85, and I think mine is a 77 back B, the one I have. And I picked up mine ungraded for $190. So this one was really nice, and $200 to $400. It sold for $389 and change. So right in line with expectations for that one. Very nice example. Next up was a Zuckus. This one is the 65 back. Is this the C? Let's see. This one is the 65 back C with the Emperor offer, and just very light yellowing to the card back. It was a punched example, excuse me, with a target price sticker, but easily an 80 or 80 plus on that one. The value code was $100 to $200. I knew that one was too low. That one sold for $483 and change. And I think the main reason is because it only had very light yellowing to it. This one usually has pretty really heavily yellowing on the blister, but a gorgeous example. But $483.80 took that one home. Let's see. Next up, we've got the Emperor on the Palatoy Tri logo. And now this is one I was bidding on very heavily, but did not win. And again, it was just a case of bad timing, and I had too many other irons in the fire, so to speak. But it was hard to say what this one would grade out at. It was a punched example, but the card back was in really great condition. But the blister did have some kind of indentations on the top, pretty pronounced. There was an indentation down here as well on the lower right-hand corner of the blister. If I had to guess, this is probably a 75 plus or an 80 at best. It's kind of right on the line there. So I didn't want to go too high on it, but it was a really nice example. The card back was in fantastic condition. Just very light scuffing down here on the lower portion on the back of the card, but otherwise very clean, very minor wear around the hang tab. So again, 75 plus or 80, it's right on the borderline. The value code was $100 to $200. I think I bid about a $120 or so. and this one sold for $214.17. So kind of right at the very upper end of the range there, but a gorgeous example and very good buy in my mind. Very good buy. Next up was one that really surprised me. I was looking at this one early on because I liked it, but then it blew past my number, way past my number. This was a very lightly yellowed 77 back, and this one has the free coin offer, Darth Vader. It was an unpunched example with a Montgomery Ward price sticker and a tasteful corner there. So this is probably an 80 plus condition minimum. Very, very nice, but it blew well past the number I was willing to pay. The final sales price was $785.29. So that just shows you how much Darth Vader's on later Return of the Jedi US card backs where there's only light yellowing to the blister. They command big money, and we've documented a few on the channel that have done the same. So tough to find that coin offer card back, and beautiful example, but just a little bit higher than I was willing to go. Here was an interesting one. This one is the 77 back Princess Leia Organa. And if you know Return of the Jedi US card backs, you know that Princess Leia, the first 12 Princess Leia on the Return of the Jedi card back can be very, very pricey. It's very rare. There were not many of these made where they had the first 12 Leia on the Return of the Jedi card back. It was a partially unpunched with a price sticker, and beautiful example, but the blister did have some light creasing at the top, so probably overall a 70 or 75 most likely. The value code was $400 to $700, and I knew that one was way too low because pristine examples can sell for as high as $3,000 I've seen on Facebook. So this one sold for $1135 though, which I think actually is a very good buy because this is a very, very rare, tough to find card back. But $1135 and change, including the buyer's premium for this example, was a very good buy in my mind. Next up was an R5D4 on the Return of the Jedi card back. Now, if this had been a clear blister, I would have bid nuclear on it because it's one I'm really trying to find, a clear blister R5D4. But this one was yellowed, but the rest of the card back and everything were in great shape, probably an overall 80 grade. The value code was $400 to $700, and that one sold for $392 and change. So again, I think that price was very fair. But again, that just shows you how much I'm going to have to pay if I ever do find an R5D4 on a clear blister Return of the Jedi. It's probably going to be closer to double that price. But that's just another data point for those of you out there looking for R5s. Finally, I've got a moderately yellowed blister, very light yellowing, to a 77 back Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot. As you can see, it's only very light yellowing. It was a punched example. It did have a very light crease in the upper left-hand corner, but a very nice one overall. The value code was $200 to $400. I was guessing towards the upper end of that range, and I was wrong. It sold for $293. So, again, another good buy. So, as I've talked about in past Hakes videos, you can get some pretty good buys out there, especially for ungraded, because it seems like, you know, the high-end collectors, they all gravitate towards the already graded items. They don't want to deal with the long turnaround times. And to me, there were some good values. All the ones I picked up at Hakes were ungraded. So hopefully I'll have those to show you, as I said, in about a month and a half or so. Once I get these back from Hakes, send them to CAS, and then hopefully get those back within that 30-day turnaround offer that they're doing right now. So anyway, that's all I really had for this video. I hope you enjoyed looking at some of the recent sales at Hakes. This was by no means inclusive. There were a number of other items, but I just kind of picked a smattering of different items that I thought you'd like to take a look at. Thanks again for watching, and I'll be back soon.